The emergency alarm did not come from any known star. It came from a place where nothing had existed for almost 40,000 years. The message burst across the galactic relay network without warning. Every station, every warship, every trade port, and every deep space observatory received the same impossible signal. Ancient machines that had been silent for centuries suddenly woke up. Navigation maps erased themselves. Military satellites turned toward one forgotten corner of the galaxy. Then a calm voice spoke in perfect translation. To whoever still remembers kindness, leave the Vayan reach. Run now, we are already too late. Silence followed. The message ended with a single signature. Humanity. Across the galaxy, countless beings stared at their screens in disbelief. Humans were dead. Everyone knew that. Earth had turned to ash nearly 40,000 years ago. So who had just spoken? And what could frighten a race that history claimed had vanished forever? Far beyond the busy trade lanes, on the crystal world of Eris Vale, Captain Liren Tesh lowered his 4 silver eyes from the glowing display. His feathers, usually smooth and neat, stood upright in alarm. "No," he whispered. "That's impossible." Around him, the bridge of the exploration ship Silver Horizon had become completely still. No one moved, no one even breathed. Lieutenant Mira, the youngest officer aboard, finally found her voice. "Captain, was that real?" Liren did not answer. He simply replayed the message, again. The voice never changed. Calm, certain, tired. The ship's oldest historian slowly stood from his chair. Professor Kale had spent nearly 200 years studying extinct civilizations. His hands trembled. "I know that voice pattern," he said. Everyone turned toward him. "You've heard it before?" Liren asked. Kale nodded. "Only once." "When?" The old scholar swallowed. "In a recording hidden beneath the first archive." The bridge became even quieter. "Those recordings were sealed," Mira said. "They were. So how? They were sealed because the Council wanted everyone to forget." Captain Liren stepped closer. "What exactly did they want forgotten?" Kale looked toward the stars outside the bridge, the last favor humanity ever repaid. No one spoke. Even the ship's computers seemed to pause. Far away, inside the shining towers of the Galactic Assembly, panic spread faster than light. Thousands of representatives from hundreds of worlds rushed into emergency chambers. The great dome echoed with frightened voices. "The signal is fake. It has to be. Humans are extinct. They've been extinct longer than most civilizations have existed." But every ancient relay confirmed the source. "That's impossible." At the center of the chamber sat Chancellor Vorex, leader of the assembly. His skin, usually bright blue, had faded almost white. He stared at the floating star map. One region blinked red. The Vayan Reach, an empty sector, forbidden, forgotten. Official records described it with only 3 words. No surviving life. Something had spoken from inside it. General Rask of the Iron Dominion slammed one heavy fist onto the table. "This is someone's trick." "It fooled relic technology older than your empire," another delegate answered. Rask growled. "I'll send my fleet." The Chancellor turned sharply. "No." The chamber fell silent. "No one enters the Reach." Rask laughed. "Since when does fear rule the Assembly?" The Chancellor looked directly into his eyes. "Since the day humans disappeared." Even the proud generals stopped smiling. No one mentioned that day anymore. Most citizens had never even learned it in school. The official story was simple. Humanity destroyed itself. End of history. But older races remembered something different. Something they never discussed. Across the galaxy, trade routes emptied. Freighters changed course without waiting for orders. Mining colonies shut down. Tourist stations locked their gates. Families hurried onto evacuation ships without understanding why. Fear spread because ancient instincts had awakened. Sometimes, a civilization does not remember the facts. It remembers the feeling, and the feeling was terror. Deep beneath the assembly, hidden behind doors that had not opened in 12,000 years, a single vault unlocked itself. Dust floated through the dark air. Old lights flickered. A small machine powered on. Its surface carried one simple engraving, property of Earth Relief Corps. The machine waited, then projected a blue human face into the darkness. Archive 7 activated. Its voice echoed softly. Then, the promise has begun. Thousands of light years away, Captain Lyran ordered the Silver Horizon toward the Forbidden Sector. "Captain," Mira said carefully, "the Assembly hasn't given permission." "I know. We could lose our commission." "I know. We might never come back." Lyran finally looked at her. "What would you do if the dead asked for help?" She had no answer. The engines roared. Stars stretched into glowing rivers. The ship disappeared into faster-than-light travel. Professor Kale quietly opened a small metal case. Inside rested an old coin. Not valuable, not beautiful, just worn smooth with age. One side showed a strange blue planet. The other showed two hands shaking. Human hands. Kale smiled sadly. "My grandfather told me never to spend this." Mira examined it. "Why?" "He said humanity only gave these to friends." She frowned. "Friends?" Kale nodded. "They called them promise coins." "What promise?" The old historian looked out the window again. They never explained. The journey lasted 6 days. As the Silver Horizon approached the edge of Vayan Reach, every sensor failed. Navigation vanished. Artificial gravity flickered. Even time seemed uncertain. The stars themselves looked wrong. Not broken. Moved. Like invisible hands had gently rearranged the sky. Lieutenant Mira whispered, "I've never seen space look alive." Neither had anyone else. The ship drifted carefully through silent darkness. No radio signals, no planets, nothing. A child laughed. Everyone froze. The sound echoed through every speaker. A happy human child. Just one laugh. Then silence again. "Where did that come from?" Mira asked. "No transmission detected," the computer replied. "Replay it." "I cannot." "Why not?" "It no longer exists." Captain Lyran exchanged worried glances with Kale. "Did we imagine it?" Kale slowly shook his head. "No." Before anyone could speak again, the darkness ahead began to shine. One light, then another, then thousands. Entire stars appeared where maps insisted there should be empty space. Cities floated between them. Impossible structures surrounded living suns. Great rings circled planets made entirely of silver oceans. Massive gardens drifted freely through the vacuum, without ships or engines. Every officer stared without blinking. "This can't exist," Mira whispered. Professor Kale began crying. Not loudly. Quiet tears. "I knew it." "Knew what?" Captain Lyran barely breathed. "What are we looking at?" Kale answered with one sentence. "The greatest secret ever buried." Suddenly, every display aboard the Silver Horizon changed. A single line appeared. "Welcome, friends of Earth." No one had transmitted it. It simply appeared. Then another sentence followed. "Your kindness was never forgotten." Captain Lyran felt cold. No one alive had ever helped humanity. That had happened 40,000 years ago. So why? Why had humanity called them friends? The answer arrived before anyone could ask. A ship emerged from the silver light. It did not resemble any known design. No weapons, no battle scars, no military markings. Its smooth white hull reflected entire stars like polished glass. Along its side glowed one word, written in hundreds of alien languages. Home. The unknown vessel stopped beside the Silver Horizon. No threats, no shields, only peaceful silence. Then the same calm human voice returned. Captain Lyran Tesh. His heart nearly stopped. It knew his name. "You carry the promise coin." Kale slowly lifted the old coin with shaking hands. The voice became warmer. We have waited 40,000 years for someone to bring it home. And before anyone aboard the Silver Horizon could answer, every star in the hidden civilization dimmed together, as if an entire forgotten people had turned their eyes toward a single tiny coin that had finally returned. Part 2. Not a single soul aboard the Silver Horizon moved. Professor Kale still held the small coin in his trembling hand. Its dull metal suddenly began to glow with a soft golden light, brighter than it had ever been before. It was never just a coin, he whispered. Captain Lyron slowly stood from his command chair. Open a channel. Lieutenant Mira hesitated. What if this is a trap? Lyron looked through the bridge window at the smooth white ship floating beside them. I've seen traps before. He shook his head. They don't welcome strangers by calling them friends. Mira activated the channel. The bridge speakers remained silent for several long seconds. Then a woman appeared as a hologram in the center of the room. She looked completely human. Gray hair rested neatly behind her shoulders. Her face carried deep lines, not from age alone, but from countless years of carrying difficult memories. She wore no military uniform, only a simple white coat with a small blue emblem over her heart. Two hands reaching toward one another, the same symbol carved into the coin. She smiled gently. Welcome. No one answered. It was the first living human any of them had ever seen. Finally, Captain Lyron found his voice. You're alive. The woman gave a tiny laugh. So are you. Kale stepped forward. My name is Professor Kale. I know. You know me? We know every keeper of every promise coin. The bridge became silent again. How? Mira asked. The woman looked toward the glowing coin. Each coin remembers. No one understood what that meant. She continued. My name is Elena Ward. Lyron frowned. You're human? Yes. But humanity disappeared 40,000 years ago. We disappeared. She nodded. But we did not die. Far away, inside the Galactic Assembly, emergency meetings continued without pause. Every long-range telescope was pointed toward Vayan Reach. Every one of them failed. The hidden region refused to be observed. It was as if space itself blocked every attempt. General Rask grew more impatient. We're wasting time, Chancellor Vorex answered calmly. And rushing in would solve what? It would tell us what humans are hiding. The Chancellor looked around the chamber. Or what they are protecting. Those words unsettled everyone. Protecting, not hiding. There was a difference. One carried fear, the other carried responsibility. Back aboard the Silver Horizon, Elena invited them aboard the white vessel. There will be no weapons. Captain Lyron nodded. We came in peace. So did the first visitors. Kale blinked. The first visitors? You'll understand soon. A small shuttle carried Lyron, Mira, Kale, and 2 security officers across the short distance. The white ship had no visible doors. Instead, part of its hull became liquid, opening quietly before returning to solid metal behind them. Mira stared in amazement. There wasn't even a mechanism. There doesn't need to be, Elena said. Inside, nothing resembled military design. There were no harsh lights, no warning alarms, no rows of weapons. Gardens. Real gardens. Trees grew beneath transparent ceilings. Small rivers flowed beside polished walkways. Birds flew freely through open halls. The air smelled of rain. Captain Lyron looked around in disbelief. This is a starship? Elena smiled. No. What? It's a home that travels. A young boy ran past them, laughing as he chased a strange floating animal covered in glowing blue fur. The creature circled him happily before disappearing through another hallway. Mira whispered, Children. She had expected soldiers, scientists, maybe survivors. She had not expected families. Kale noticed something else. No one seemed afraid. The humans walked calmly through the halls. Some carried books, Others played music. Several aliens walked beside them. Not prisoners, friends. One resembled a walking crystal. Another floated inside a sphere of water. A third had 6 tiny legs and bright orange eyes. All smiled at Elena as they passed. Captain Lyran could no longer hide his confusion. Who are these people? Our neighbors. I've never seen any of these species, because they were almost erased. Those words hung heavily in the air. Almost erased. Elena continued walking. We found them. Where? Wherever hope was fading. They entered a circular room overlooking the hidden civilization. The view stole everyone's breath. Hundreds of cities floated between enormous rings surrounding a blue star. Ships crossed peaceful skies without visible engines. Great forests covered artificial moons. Gigantic mirrors reflected sunlight toward worlds still growing new oceans. Everything looked alive. Not crowded, not rushed. Simply peaceful. Captain Lyran finally asked the question that had haunted him since the signal. Why hide all this? Elena did not answer immediately. Instead, she pointed toward the horizon. Far away stood a massive black wall, stretching across space itself. It looked less like a structure and more like a scar. Dark, silent. Even the stars behind it disappeared. Mira felt cold just looking at it. What is that? Elena's smile vanished. Our reason. Kale looked closer. His eyes widened. No. Lyran turned toward him. What? I've seen drawings. Of that? Kale nodded slowly. In the oldest forbidden records. He looked frightened. They called it. He struggled to say the final words. The Hollow Frontier. The room became completely silent. Even the children playing outside suddenly stopped laughing. Elena nodded once. Yes, the frontier still exists. Lyran frowned. What is it? The human woman looked toward the endless darkness. Not a place. Then what? A prison. Several hours later, they gathered around a long wooden table. Not metal, not glowing crystal. Simple wood. Fresh bread rested beside bowls of warm soup. Mira looked surprised. You eat like this? Elena smiled. Some traditions are worth keeping. One elderly human carefully poured tea for everyone, even the alien guests. No one sat higher than anyone else. No throne, no head of the table. Lyran noticed. You don't have ranks here? We do. But kindness outranks all of them. The captain had never heard a civilization speak that way. Not once. During the meal, Kale carefully placed the glowing coin onto the table. Everyone nearby became quiet. One little girl walked over. She couldn't have been older than 8. She gently touched the coin. My teacher said one would come back someday. Elena nodded. We all hoped. The little girl looked at Kale. Thank you for bringing Grandpa's promise home. Kale blinked. Your grandfather? She smiled sadly. That night, Elena opened the oldest archive in the hidden civilization. Thousands of tiny lights surrounded the room. Each represented one promise coin. Most were dark. Only one glowed brightly. Kale's. There were more? Mira asked. Elena nodded. Thousands. What happened to them? They stayed with the families we helped. And yours came back. Eventually. Lyran looked at the glowing stars. How many survived? Elena's answer was quiet. Only one. Kale lowered his head. My grandfather always said never to lose it. He was wise. He never explained why. Elena touched the floating light. Because it wasn't payment. What was it? A promise. She opened another archive. Old images filled the room. Not drawings, real recordings. The first showed ancient Earth, blue oceans, green forests, cities filled with laughter. Mira had only seen ruined images before. She stared in silence. It was beautiful. It was home, Elena answered. The next recording appeared. A small alien rescue ship had crashed in a snowy mountain range. Its crew was starving, frozen, dying. Primitive humans climbed the mountains carrying blankets and food. They had no advanced weapons, no starships, only kindness. They didn't even know aliens existed, Mira whispered. No, but they helped anyway. Another recording. Different century, different planet. Human doctors treated wounded refugees during a plague. Another. Human engineers rebuilt cities destroyed by civil war. Another. Human pilots escorted civilian ships through pirate territory without asking for payment. Again, and again, and again. Every recording ended the same way. A promise coin exchanged hands. Not as money, as remembrance. Kale's eyes filled with tears. They helped everyone. Elena nodded. As many as we could. Lyran frowned. But why? She looked surprised. Why not? No one answered. Because no civilization they knew behaved that way. Not without profit, not without politics, not without conditions. Humans had simply helped. Suddenly, every light inside the archive turned red. A soft alarm echoed through the peaceful halls. No panic, only concern. A young officer entered quickly. Guardian Elena, she stood immediately. What happened? The frontier moved. Silence. Captain Lyran looked confused. I thought it was a wall. Elena's face had grown pale. It usually is. The officer swallowed. Not anymore. Every screen in the room activated. The black barrier across space had changed. Something enormous pressed against it from the other side. Not one thing. Millions. Their shapes could not be clearly seen. Only shifting shadows. Watching. Waiting. One massive crack spread across the dark barrier. Very slowly. Very quietly. Like glass breaking beneath impossible pressure. Then a voice echoed through every system in the hidden civilization. It was not human. It was not translated. It was not even spoken. It sounded directly inside every mind. We have found you again. And for the first time in 40,000 years, every human in the hidden worlds realized that the enemy they had sacrificed everything to contain had finally awakened. No one in the archives spoke. The words still echoed inside every mind. We have found you again. Captain Lyran had faced pirates, warlords, and living storms in deep space. Nothing had ever frightened him the way those 5 words did. They carried no anger, no excitement, no hatred, only certainty, as if the speaker had simply announced the sunrise. Elena closed her eyes for one long breath. When she opened them again, the gentle woman who had welcomed them was gone. In her place stood someone far older than her years. Seal every civilian gateway, she ordered. Yes, Guardian. Move the schools below the shield domes. Already underway. The Garden Fleet? Launching. No one shouted. No one panicked. Every human simply moved. Captain Lyran noticed something strange. They've practiced this. Elena nodded. For thousands of years. Across the hidden civilization, peaceful parks transformed with silent speed. Flower gardens folded into armored shelters. Bridges shifted beneath rivers. Homes disappeared beneath protective fields. Children calmly followed their teachers. No crying, no chaos. One little boy stopped beside an elderly woman. Grandma. She smiled warmly. Yes? Is it time again? She gently held his hand. I hope not. But if it is, he stood a little taller. We remember. She kissed his forehead. We always remember. Captain Lyran watched through the giant windows. He had never seen an evacuation like this. No fear. Only purpose. Mira noticed dozens of ships leaving enormous hangars beneath the floating cities. She expected battleships. Instead she saw vessels painted in bright colors. Blue, green, white. Each carried symbols of trees, rivers, and stars. What are those? Elena answered, without looking away from the growing crack in the frontier. The Garden Fleet. They're warships? They're rescue ships. Mira frowned. You send rescue ships against whatever that is? Elena looked toward her. That has always been humanity's first answer. 7 hours later, Captain Lyron stood inside a command chamber unlike anything he had imagined. No giant throne. No walls covered in medals. No portraits of famous generals. Instead, the center of the room held a living tree growing through polished stone. Its branches spread beneath a glass ceiling where stars shined above. Around the tree sat officers in simple uniforms. Some were human, some were not. One had transparent skin filled with glowing light. Another resembled polished stone. No one seemed surprised to see different species sharing command. Lyron quietly asked, "Who's in charge?" Elena smiled. "The person with the best answer." A young officer hurried into the room. "Guardian, the report? The barrier has lost 0.03% integrity. Population status? 98% sheltered. Civilian losses? None." Elena nodded. "Good." Lyron finally interrupted. "I'm sorry." Everyone looked toward him. "But I still don't understand." Elena folded her hands. "Ask. What exactly is behind that wall?" Silence settled over the room. Finally, an elderly alien stood. His body looked almost like carved crystal. "My name is Sereth." Captain Lyron bowed politely. "I am honored." Sereth smiled. "I owe humanity my life." Then he turned toward the dark star map. "The Hollow are not an empire," Sereth continued. "They do not build. They do not trade. They do not rule." "What do they do?" Mira asked. The old crystal being answered softly. "They erase." A cold feeling spread through the room. "They don't conquer worlds?" "No." "They don't enslave civilizations?" "No." "Then what?" Sereth's glowing eyes dimmed. "They remove every sign that a civilization ever existed." Lyron frowned. "Meaning?" "They erase history." The room remained silent. "If they destroy a planet," Sereth continued, "they also destroy every record. Books, computers, memories, languages, even names." Mira blinked. "That's impossible." "It should be, but it isn't." Another officer activated the star map. Hundreds of red lights appeared. Each marked a vanished civilization. Captain Lyron stared. "I've never heard of these." Sereth nodded sadly. "Exactly." Mira slowly understood. "Wait." She pointed at the map. "We've never heard of them because they succeeded." The realization hit everyone at once. Entire species had disappeared so completely that no one even remembered they had lived. Not one story, not one song, not one name. Only empty stars remained. Captain Lyron whispered, "How many?" Elena answered, "We don't know." "No estimate?" "We've stopped counting." Professor Kale stepped closer to the map. One symbol caught his eye. "This one," he frowned. "I've seen it." Everyone turned. "Where?" "In the Forbidden Archives. It belonged to the Talren." Sereth slowly nodded. "The Talren raised my people." Kale looked confused. "Our history says they never existed." Sereth smiled sadly. "Then history has already begun to forget." A young human entered, carrying an old wooden box. She carefully placed it beside Elena. Inside rested hundreds of journals. Real paper, bound in leather, handwritten. Captain Lyron looked surprised. "You still use books?" Elena nodded. "The Hollow corrupts digital memory." "So you write everything by hand?" "We write, we carve, we sing, we teach children, we tell stories." She gently touched one journal. "If memory survives in enough hearts, they cannot erase it." Kale carefully opened one journal. The first page read, "Today we remember the Kishari." Below it was a drawing of a smiling alien child. The next journal began differently. Today we remember the oceans of Luma. Another. Today we remember the songs of the Yaren. Another. Today we remember everyone whose names were stolen. Kale's hands shook. This archive, Elena nodded, is the galaxy's memory. Far across the assembly, panic grew worse. The latest sensor reports made no sense. Energy readings around Vayan Reach were climbing faster every hour. General Rask smiled. There, he pointed at the data. They're preparing weapons. An elderly scientist quietly corrected him. No. What? Those aren't weapon signatures. What are they? The scientist swallowed. Shields. Rask laughed. Even better. The scientist looked terrified. No, they're shielding outward. The chamber became silent. Outward? The scientist nodded. They aren't protecting themselves. They're protecting us. Far from the core, the reality settled in. Back inside the hidden civilization, alarms echoed again. This time the crack across the frontier doubled in length. Everyone looked toward the giant display. The darkness moved. Not quickly, slowly, patiently, like something smiling. One small piece of the barrier broke away. It floated into empty space, then vanished. Elena whispered, 40,000 years. Captain Lyran heard her. What? He asked. We bought 40,000 years. For who? For everyone else. Lyran stared at her. You mean, the barrier isn't a prison? It is, but not for us. The realization struck him like lightning. You stayed here. To hold the door closed. Elena nodded. Yes. No one spoke for several moments. Finally, Mira asked the question none of them wanted answered. Why didn't you tell the galaxy? Elena looked toward the growing crack. Would they have believed us? Silence. No. Would they have helped? More silence. They were busy fighting each other. Captain Lyran lowered his head. She was right. The assembly had spent thousands of years arguing over borders, trade, and power. Meanwhile, humanity had disappeared. Everyone assumed they were gone. No one asked why. Kale slowly closed one of the journals. My grandfather once said humans never asked for monuments. Elena smiled softly. We preferred neighbors. Suddenly, every light inside the command chamber flickered. The tree in the center of the room glowed bright blue. One by one, hidden doors opened. Captain Lyran watched in amazement. Thousands of people entered. Farmers, teachers, doctors, builders, artists, children, not soldiers. Each carried something. A violin, a toolbox, medical bags, seeds, paintings, books. Mira frowned. What are they doing? Elena's voice was calm. Preparing. For battle? For survival. The captain looked around. Where are your armies? The room became strangely quiet. Several humans exchanged glances. Finally, an old man smiled. We're standing here. Lyran blinked. No. You mean... The old man nodded. Every citizen serves. Even the children, when they are old enough. What do they train in? The old man chuckled. Whatever helps someone else. At that moment, deep beneath the city, massive doors opened for the first time in thousands of years. Captain Lyran expected endless rows of missiles, planet-killing cannons, ancient superweapons. Instead, millions of small rescue craft rose from underground hangars. Hospital ships, engineering vessels, evacuation transports, terraforming platforms, fire suppression drones, mobile food factories, water generators. Mira stared at the endless fleet. They're not preparing to destroy worlds. Elena quietly shook her head. We're preparing to save them. A deep vibration rolled through the city. Everyone looked toward the distant frontier. The crack widened once more. Something emerged. Not completely, just one enormous hand. It was larger than a moon, made of shifting darkness, covered in countless moving eyes. The stars bent around it. Space itself screamed. Captain Lyran felt his knees weaken. One hand, only one hand, and it dwarfed entire planets. Every human in the command chamber became perfectly still. No one cried, no one ran. Instead, an old woman gently closed the journal she had been writing in and whispered, "Then the waiting is over." Above the hidden worlds, thousands of peaceful white ships silently changed course, not toward war, but toward the breaking wall, as humanity prepared to repay one ancient act of kindness with a sacrifice that could shake the fate of every world in the galaxy. The giant hand did not strike. It simply rested against the broken barrier. Its countless black eyes opened, one after another. Thousands, then tens of thousands. Each eye looked in a different direction. Some watched the hidden cities. Some watched the stars. Some seemed to stare directly into the minds of everyone present. Captain Lyran felt a sharp pain behind his eyes. Memories flashed across his thoughts. His first day at the academy, his mother's smile, his father's funeral. Then, nothing. For one terrifying second, he forgot his own name. Professor Kale grabbed his shoulder. "Lyran." The captain blinked hard. The memories rushed back. What was that? Elena answered immediately. The hollow always begin with memory. She turned toward every officer in the room. "Activate the choir." No one hesitated. Across the hidden civilization, bells began ringing. Not warning sirens, real bells, deep, clear, peaceful. The sound flowed through forests, cities, rivers, and gardens. Children stopped walking. Teachers gathered them into circles. Families joined hands. Old people closed their eyes. Then everyone began speaking together. Not shouting, not chanting, simply telling stories. One father told his daughter about the first dog that landed on another world. A grandmother described the smell of rain on old Earth. A mechanic laughed while telling young apprentices how humans once repaired spaceships with tape and hope. Captain Lyran looked around in confusion. What are they doing? Elena smiled. They're remembering. The strange pressure inside his mind began to weaken. Mira noticed it too. The voices, they're fading. Elena nodded. The hollow feed on forgotten things. So memories are our shield. Kale stared in amazement. You built a defense out of stories. Elena looked at him. No. We built it out of people. Far beyond the barrier, the enormous black hand slowly tightened. The crack spread farther. Stars vanished behind it. One by one, like candles blown out by an unseen wind. Commander Elias Brooks entered the chamber. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and wore the same simple white uniform as everyone else. No medals decorated his chest. Only one small blue thread was sewn into the sleeve. Elena greeted him with a nod. Elias, the fleet is ready. Lyran studied the newcomer. You command your military? Elias smiled. I grow apples. The captain blinked. What? I command the fleet when needed. You're a farmer. When I'm lucky. Mira whispered to Kale. Is everyone here like this? Kale quietly answered, I think they are. Elias walked toward the great star map. The first wave will reach the barrier in 27 minutes. Captain Lyran frowned. First wave? The Garden Fleet. They're still rescue ships. They are. They're unarmed. Mostly. Lyron finally lost his patience. You can't fight that thing with hospitals. The room became silent. Then Elias asked softly, "Who said we're fighting?" No one answered. The farmer commander touched the display. Dozens of nearby star systems appeared. Each contained billions of civilians. The barrier breaks. He pointed calmly. The shock wave reaches these systems first. His finger moved again. Then these. Another movement. And finally the assembly. Lyron slowly understood. The fleet is evacuating them. Yes, they don't even know they're in danger. They will, and you're warning them first. Elias smiled faintly. We always do. Inside the Galactic Assembly, alarms suddenly exploded across every screen. An unknown transmission arrived from Veon Reach. Security officers rushed toward the Chancellor. We're receiving thousands of signals. Military? No. What then? The technician stared in disbelief. Evacuation routes. The giant display changed. Countless safe paths appeared across known space. Every route avoided unstable stars, pirate territory, and military conflicts. The calculations were impossible. The computer estimated they would save nearly 4 trillion lives. General Rask narrowed his eyes. It's a trick. The scientist beside him quietly shook his head. No. What now? They're giving us the fastest way out. The transmission ended with a simple message. Please leave now. No threats, no demands, no payment requested. Just a warning. Back inside the hidden civilization, Mira followed Elena through a long hallway lined with paintings. Not famous battles, not great victories, simple moments. A child hugging an alien, doctors rebuilding a village, engineers planting trees on a dead moon, families sharing meals. Every painting carried a date. Some were over 30,000 years old. Mira stopped before one picture. A frightened alien child stood beside 2 humans during a violent storm. Above the painting, someone had written, "No one eats alone." Mira quietly smiled. That's beautiful. Elena nodded. It changed a civilization. One dinner? The child became an emperor. Further down the hall stood another painting. A tiny spacecraft, drifting in darkness. One human astronaut floated outside, repairing it. Behind him waited 3 frightened alien passengers. Below the image were only 6 words. We couldn't leave them behind. Captain Lyron slowly realized something. Every painting showed someone being helped. Not heroes seeking glory, just ordinary people refusing to walk away. Kale stopped before the oldest painting. Its colors had faded. The image showed a group of frightened aliens wrapped in blankets, while early humans stood around a campfire. Snow covered everything. The first rescue. Elena gently touched the frame. They crashed on Earth before humanity had spaceflight. They were strangers. They looked terrifying. What happened? The humans built a fire. Kale smiled. My grandfather told me this story. Suddenly, every light dimmed. Commander Elias spoke through the city's communication network. Frontier breach increasing. Fleet departure in 5 minutes. Families quietly hugged one another. Children embraced parents. No dramatic speeches. No tears. Only quiet promises. I'll come home. I'll keep dinner warm. Take care of Grandpa. I love you. Captain Lyron watched one little girl hand her father a drawing. He carefully folded it into his pocket. What is it? Lyron asked. The girl answered proudly. So he remembers what we're protecting. A deep vibration shook the city, this time much stronger. The giant hand had pushed farther through the crack. Dark mist spread across nearby space. One abandoned observation station vanished instantly. Not exploded, not crushed, simply gone. Every record of its construction disappeared from nearby computers. Captain Lyron stared at the blank display. There was a station there. One technician looked confused. What station? Lyron turned toward him. You don't remember? No. Kale quickly opened one handwritten journal. It existed. He pointed at a sketch. I wrote about it yesterday. Only then did the technician's memory return. His face turned pale. They're already doing it. Elena looked toward the barrier. They're testing us. Commander Elias nodded. They know we're awake. Good. Lyran frowned. Good. Elias looked at him. They'll focus on us. The captain suddenly understood. If they're watching you, they're not watching the evacuations. The Garden fleet launched. Millions of white ships rose together. No battle music echoed, only quiet engines. From orbit they looked like glowing snowflakes drifting into darkness. Captain Lyran had never seen anything so beautiful, or so heartbreaking. Each ship carried doctors, builders, teachers, scientists, rescue crews, and only a handful of soldiers. Mira whispered, They really believe saving people comes first. Elena answered softly, It always has. Then something impossible happened. One of the black eyes on the giant hand focused directly on the fleet. The darkness rippled. A voice echoed across space. This time everyone understood every word. Still choosing kindness. The words sounded almost amused. Commander Elias stood perfectly still. Yes, the hollow answered. It failed before. Elias shook his head. No. It bought 40,000 years. Silence followed. Then every eye on the enormous hand slowly turned toward him. Captain Lyran felt the weight of those impossible stares. The hollow spoke once more. Then we shall erase those years first. At that exact moment, every handwritten journal inside the great archive burst open by itself, their pages turning wildly in an invisible wind, as if history itself were desperately trying to remember, before someone made the entire galaxy forget forever. The pages would not stop turning. Thousands of journals fluttered at once. Ink glowed across old paper. Names, places, faces. Entire lives seemed to rise from the pages like faint streams of light. Professor Kale stood frozen. He had spent 2 centuries protecting history. Now it looked as if history itself was trying to escape. What's happening? Captain Lyran asked. Elena hurried toward the nearest journal. They're responding. To what? The hollow. She gently pressed one hand onto the open pages. The paper immediately became still. A name remained visible. Earth. Elena smiled softly. I remember you. The glowing name slowly faded. Lyran frowned. You knew her? No. Then why did you say that? Because someone should. Across the great archive, hundreds of volunteers rushed between endless shelves. No one carried weapons. They carried empty notebooks, ink, pens, small recording devices. Children helped the elderly. Parents helped strangers. Everyone copied names as fast as they could. Mira looked confused. Why are they rewriting books that already exist? An old librarian answered, while his pen raced across the page. Because the originals may disappear. The hollow can destroy paper? No, they attack memory. He smiled sadly. If enough people remember the same story, they cannot erase it completely. Kale immediately picked up a notebook. So every copy matters. Every copy. He began writing as fast as he could. Not because someone ordered him. Because he understood. Every page was another life saved from being forgotten. Far beyond the hidden worlds, the Garden fleet spread across nearby star systems. Its ships did not form battle lines. They formed bridges. Rescue corridors stretched between stars. Medical stations unfolded from peaceful-looking vessels. Engineering ships repaired ancient jump gates that had not worked in centuries. Food transports filled empty colony warehouses. Captain Lyran watched in disbelief. They're preparing the galaxy to survive. Commander Elias nodded. If the barrier falls, people will need hope before they need revenge. Meanwhile, panic had reached the Galactic Assembly. The evacuation routes sent by humanity had proven correct. Long-range sensors confirmed a strange wave of missing stars, moving towards civilized space. Entire observation satellites simply vanished. No debris, no explosion, nothing. General Rask slammed both fists onto the command table. "I've seen enough." He pointed toward the tactical display. "Launch the Dominion fleet." Several admirals hesitated. Chancellor Vorex slowly stood. "You ignored humanity for 40,000 years." Rask glared. "I don't answer to ghosts." The Chancellor's voice remained calm. "You will today." Within hours, nearly 12,000 Dominion warships entered hyperspace. Their weapons were unmatched. Planet-breaker cannons, gravity torpedoes, dark matter lances. Rask smiled confidently. "Let's see what scares humans." Back at the frontier, the giant black hand continued pushing through the widening crack. The barrier groaned. It sounded almost alive. Millions of tiny blue lights suddenly appeared across its surface. Captain Lyran pointed. "What are those?" Elena looked up. "The anchors." "What anchors?" "The first generation." The display zoomed closer. Lyran's breath caught. The blue lights were not machines. They were ships. Ancient ships. Thousands of them. Millions. Each had fused into the barrier itself. Professor Kale stared in horror. They became part of it. Elena nodded. They volunteered. For how long? 40,000 years. Silence filled the room. Every glowing point marked a crew that had never gone home. Mira whispered, "They're still there?" "No. The people are gone. The ships remain." Commander Elias stepped beside her. They became the wall. Captain Lyran suddenly understood why humanity had disappeared. They had never abandoned the galaxy. They had stood between it and extinction, alone, for 40,000 years. A soft voice interrupted the silence. "Guardian." A young officer approached Elena, carrying an old wooden box. Inside rested dozens of faded photographs. Real photographs. Children, families, pets, birthday cakes, campfires, ordinary moments. "What are these?" Lyran asked. Elena carefully picked up one picture. A smiling man held a baby beneath a tree. He was the first captain. "Of the barrier?" She nodded. "He asked that this photo stay with him." Captain Lyran looked closer. "It isn't a military portrait." "No, it's his daughter." Another photograph showed two elderly women baking bread. Another showed friends fishing beside a lake. Another showed a child proudly holding a school drawing. Commander Elias smiled. "They didn't carry pictures of war," he said. "They carried reminders of home." The city suddenly shook, much harder than before. The giant crack spread across nearly a quarter of the frontier. Dark mist poured through like black water. One rescue station disappeared, then another. Mira blinked. There were 3 stations. She frowned. "No. 4? Kale immediately checked his notebook. There were 5. Everyone looked at him. "You wrote them down?" He nodded. "I wasn't taking chances." Slowly, everyone else's memories returned. Captain Lyran shivered. "If you hadn't, we would already be forgetting." Inside the assembly, the Dominion fleet reached the edge of Vayan Reach. General Rask stood proudly aboard his flagship, the Iron Crown. Ahead floated the first ships of the Garden Fleet. Smooth, white, peaceful. Rask laughed. "Those are the defenders?" His weapons officer nodded uncertainly. "They appear to be lightly armed." Rask opened a fleet-wide channel. "This is General Rask. I have come to assist." Commander Elias answered from his flagship. His voice remained calm. "Turn around." Rask smirked. "I didn't ask permission. I'm not giving permission. I'm giving a warning. The bridge crew chuckled. Rask leaned closer. Move your little rescue boats. Elias shook his head. No. You would block my fleet? I would protect it. Rask laughed loudly. From what? Elias looked past the Dominion ships, toward the broken frontier. You still think we're standing in your way? A long pause followed. We're standing in front of you. Before Rask could answer, space twisted. The giant hand finally pushed completely through the crack. Every nearby star dimmed. Gravity bent. Time slowed. One Dominion cruiser simply folded inward until it vanished without making a sound. Then another. Then 3 more. No explosions, no wreckage, only absence. Crew members screamed across emergency channels. What happened? They're gone. Our sensors can't even remember where they were. Rask's smile disappeared. Every weapon aboard the Dominion fleet opened fire. Thousands of beams crossed the darkness. Planet-killer missiles streaked toward the giant hand. Gravity bombs detonated. For one brilliant moment, space itself glowed white. Then, the light faded. The hand remained untouched. Not a single mark. Not a single scratch. Captain Lyran watched from the hidden city. They didn't even notice. Commander Elias quietly answered, no. Then, the hollow spoke again. This time, its voice reached every ship, every station, every world. You still believe strength is measured by what you can destroy. No one replied. The hand slowly opened. Inside its palm floated hundreds of tiny black sparks. Each one drifted silently toward the Dominion fleet. Rask frowned. What are those? His science officer whispered. I don't know. The sparks touched the first battleship. Instantly, every computer aboard reset. Crew members looked around in confusion. One young officer frowned. General. Rask turned. What? What fleet? The bridge became silent. The hollow had begun erasing the memory of the war itself. Ah. Commander Elias immediately gave an order. Release the Rememberers. Captain Lyran looked toward the display. Tiny silver drones launched from every Garden Fleet ship. Millions of them. Not armed. Each carried a single crystal. What are they? Mira asked. Elena smiled. Our oldest invention. The drones spread through space like starlight. As they reached confused Dominion ships, gentle voices began playing from the crystals. Names, dates, stories, family recordings, lullabies, messages from loved ones. One frightened Dominion sailor suddenly heard his daughter's laugh. His memories rushed back. He collapsed into tears. Across thousands of ships, the same miracle unfolded. Humanity was not attacking the forgetting. They were helping everyone remember. General Rask slowly remembered his own name. He fell into his command chair, breathing hard. He stared through the viewport at the peaceful white rescue ships protecting his fleet from the unimaginable horror beyond. For the first time in his long military career, he understood something that every human child in the hidden worlds had been taught from birth. The strongest shield in the universe was not made of steel. It was made of people who refused to let one another be forgotten. Then, every sensor in the region screamed at once. The giant black hand was no longer alone. Behind the broken frontier, thousands of even larger shapes began moving toward the opening, and Commander Elias quietly whispered the words every human had hoped they would never have to say. The rest of them are coming. No one breathed. The display filled with moving shadows. One giant hand had nearly destroyed an entire battle fleet without effort. Now thousands of larger shapes were rising behind it. Captain Lyran felt his heart pounding against his ribs. How many? He whispered. The answer came from a young analyst whose hands shook over the controls. I can't count them. Estimate. She swallowed. Millions. Silence fell over the command chamber. Not millions of ships. Millions of hollow beings. Each one larger than moons. each one waiting beyond the broken frontier. Commander Elias slowly folded his hands behind his back. Begin Phase 2. No one questioned the order. Across the hidden civilization, bells rang again. This time, they carried a different rhythm. The sound traveled through every city, every garden, every school, and every ship. Children looked toward the sky. Teachers smiled sadly. It has begun. Families embraced one another, not because they believed they would lose, because they knew what had to be done. Captain Lyran stepped beside Elena. You knew this day would come. Yes, for 40,000 years? She nodded. We hoped it never would, but we prepared anyway. Far away, the Dominion fleet struggled to recover. General Rask stared at the white rescue ships surrounding his battered armada. Hours earlier, he had laughed at them. Now human engineers were repairing his damaged cruisers. Human medics treated his wounded sailors. Human drones restored corrupted navigation systems. No one demanded payment. No one even mentioned the insults he had spoken. One Dominion officer lowered his head. Why are they helping us? A gray-haired human medic smiled while wrapping a bandage around the officer's arm. Because you're hurt. Even after I fired on you? Especially after. The officer had no words. Inside the Great Archive, Professor Kale and hundreds of volunteers continued writing. The shelves stretched farther than the eye could see. Every notebook filled with names. Every journal carried another civilization. Children sat beside elders, copying old stories by hand. One little boy frowned at a difficult word. Kale gently corrected him. You missed one letter. The child erased it carefully. Does one letter matter? Kale smiled. It matters to the person whose name it is. The boy nodded seriously. Then he wrote the name again, perfectly. Suddenly, every light inside the archive flashed blue. An ancient door slowly opened. No one had noticed it before. Dust drifted into the air. The stone above the entrance carried words carved in dozens of alien languages. For those who came before us. Elena stepped inside. Lyran and Mira followed. The chamber beyond was enormous. Its ceiling disappeared into darkness. At the center stood millions of glowing crystals. Each floated quietly above a simple stone pedestal. Captain Lyran whispered, "What is this place?" Elena answered softly, "The Hall of Favors." He looked around in confusion. Favors? She walked toward the nearest crystal. Inside it floated the image of an elderly alien woman. She once gave a human child water. Another crystal. A frightened miner pulled survivors from a collapsed tunnel. Another, a doctor refused to abandon wounded strangers. Another, a farmer shared his last harvest. Millions. Millions of simple acts. No kings, no conquerors, no famous heroes. Just ordinary people choosing kindness. Mira felt tears in her eyes. You remembered, all of them? Elena smiled. We promised we would. Captain Lyran slowly turned toward her. The signal. She nodded. Mankind never forgets a favor. It wasn't a saying. Before Elena could speak again, the hall shook violently. Several crystals flickered. Outside, the frontier split open another 100 kilometers. The first hollow creature stepped through completely. It was impossible to describe. Its shape shifted constantly. Eyes appeared and vanished. Stars bent around its body. Where its shadow touched space, constellations disappeared. Commander Elias's voice echoed through every city. All fleets, hold position. No one moved. Lyran looked at the tactical display in disbelief. Why aren't you attacking? Elena quietly answered, because that's what they expect. The hollow creature drifted closer. Its voice rolled across the stars. Your resistance ends today. Commander Elias answered from his flagship. No. The hollow paused. No, no. The creature tilted its enormous head. You cannot defeat us. Elias smiled faintly. We know. The hollow seemed almost curious. Then why remain? Elias looked back toward the hidden civilization, toward the children, toward the gardens, toward the Hall of Favors. Then he answered, because someone once stayed for us. Captain Liren frowned. What does he mean? Elena closed her eyes. It is time. She placed her hand on a small control panel. The wall behind them quietly opened. A single old recording appeared. The date froze everyone. 40,000 years earlier. The image showed ancient Earth, not destroyed, still alive. Rain fell across a quiet mountain valley. A damaged alien ship lay in the mud. Its crew stumbled outside. They were unlike any species Liren had ever seen. Weak, starving, terrified. Before they could move farther, several human farmers arrived. Not soldiers, not scientists, farmers. One of the frightened aliens collapsed. The oldest human removed his own coat and wrapped it around the stranger. His wife carried warm soup from their home. Their little daughter smiled and offered a blanket. The alien captain tried to speak. I cannot repay this. The old farmer laughed gently. You don't have to. The recording froze. Liren looked at Elena. That was the first rescue. She nodded. No. What? The first remembered rescue. The recording continued. Years later, those same rescued aliens had become one of the galaxy's greatest civilizations. When Earth faced its first devastating planetary famine, those aliens returned. Not with weapons, with food. Enough to save billions. They repaid the kindness, Mira whispered. Elena smiled. They tried. But humanity, it said the debt was already paid. Captain Liren suddenly understood. So the cycle continued. Yes, one act of kindness led to another, and another, and another. For thousands of years. The Hall of Favors brightened. Millions of crystals began glowing together. Every remembered kindness, every remembered life, every remembered promise. Outside, the hollow creature suddenly stopped moving. Its countless eyes stared toward the hidden civilization. For the first time, it hesitated. Commander Elias noticed. They feel it. Captain Liren looked confused. They feel what? Elena whispered. They cannot understand why anyone remembers people who offered nothing in return. Suddenly, every crystal released a beam of light into the sky. Millions of beams rose together. They spread across the hidden civilization, across the garden fleet, across nearby stars. Not weapons, memories, laughter, songs, friendships, faces, hope. The beams joined together into a brilliant river of light, flowing directly toward the damaged frontier. The hollow recoiled. Its voice trembled. Impossible. Fear entered its voice. Captain Liren stared in disbelief. They're afraid. Elena nodded. They always were. Of memories? She smiled softly. No. Of love that refuses to disappear. The endless river of remembered lives continued to rise into the darkness. And somewhere beyond the broken frontier, among the countless waiting shadows, something ancient took its first uncertain step backward.